Teaching without words. The spirit of Zen teaching stories on the way to enlightenment. Solala Towler. The master was giving a Dharma talk. Quote, "It is important," he said, "to know the difference between the inner meaning of words and the words themselves. When we say fire, there is no fire. When we say water, there is no water. Your mouth does not burn when you say fire, and your mouth does not become wet when you say water. You must remember that fire and water are not themselves words. Where can I find a man who has no mouth, eyes, or ears, who nevertheless speaks the truth, sees the truth, and hears the truth?" One day, a monk by the name of Zhu Feng went into the meditation hall and started a fire. Then, locking both front and back doors, he began to yell, "Fire, fire!" At this, the rest of the monks began to fear for their lives and cried, "Let us out, let us out." A monk named Zuancha, who happened to be passing by and heard the shouts of monks in the burning hall, picked up a piece of firewood and tossed it through the window where Zhu Feng opened the door. At this, the master nodded at his students, who mostly sat and looked back at him with dull eyes and empty heads. "Ah," he thought to himself, "one day they will understand. One day when they are on fire themselves." I think we need to read it one more time so that we can understand the story a little bit more. For people who may, right, it's a short story anyways. Okay, so he thought to himself, one day they will understand, one day when they are on fire themselves. Teaching without words. The master was giving a Dharma talk. "It is important," he said, "to know the difference between the inner meaning of words and the words themselves. We say fire. When we say fire, there is no fire. When we say water, there is no water. Your mouth does not burn when you say fire, and your mouth does not become wet when you say water. You must remember that fire and water are not themselves words. Where can I find a man who has no mouth, eyes, or ears, who nevertheless speaks the truth, sees the truth, and hears the truth?" One day, a monk by the name of Zhu Feng went into the meditation hall and started a fire. Then, locking both front and back doors, he began to yell, "Fire, fire!" At this, the rest of the monks began to fear for their lives and cried out, "Let us out, let us out." A monk named Zhu Sha, who happened to be passing by, heard the shouts of the monks in the burning hall, picked up a piece of firewood and tossed it through the window. Whereupon Zhu Feng opened the door. At this, the master nodded at his students, who mostly sat and looked at himself with dull eyes and empty heads. Ah, he thought to himself, one day they will understand, one day when they are on fire themselves. You're welcome, Jessica. What did we learn? What do you feel you learned from this story, brothers and sisters? What do you feel that we have learned from this story? Let's see, what can we reflect on? What meaning do you derive from this story? Yeah. I just want to see what we feel first before we get into it. Or from, okay, Brown Skin Girl 391 says, don't cast judgment. Gallon says, I'm learning English with your stories. Maya says, things are not what they seem. Anyone else? Elf on YouTube says, words can be fire or ice. Be careful using them. Daniel says, the meditative state will open mind so you catch the fire for yourself to learn the way. Passion. Rain says, personally, that we are here to teach people how to teach people to love themselves. Freedom says, all what I want to say is that you are the best healing in this app. Thank you. Eltrin says, saying being on fire doesn't necessarily mean to be on fire. Saying fire, that doesn't necessarily mean, okay. Mazer says, I think it's more about perspective and discernment. Savvy Butter says, it's all an illusion. There's many knowledge in here, and they're all, there's no right or wrong. It's just we see where we're at. Okay, we see where we're at. Okay, so I'm gonna do my best to express the things that I may be perceiving, but it doesn't mean that it's the only perception, right? It doesn't mean that it's what you see, you observe yourself too, and this is what I observe in, right? This is what I'm observing. Okay, let's see here. We are where we're at is a perfect summary. Yeah. Everyone has different perception. Yeah. Street says, it's like the ego. It feels the need to pull others into the fire for validation of how ego feels. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Agradable. Not sure what agradable means, but the master. Okay, let's run it. Let's go through this, because I think I'm gonna post this on YouTube or whatever. Master says, I have been guilty of that, wanting others to see my pain to validate it, but they didn't need to. Sherio says, I see it as it is and what is not, but I missed the story. Here we go. Teaching without words. The master was giving a Dharma talk. It is important, he said, to know the difference between the inner meaning of words, the inner meaning and the words themselves, right? Like, what's the spiritual meaning of fire and water versus fire and water outside? When you say fire, there's no fire. When you say fire, there is no fire. When you say water, there is no water. Your mouth does not burn when you say fire, right? You could just try it out. Fire, nothing's happening. And your mouth does not become wet when you say water. Or does it? You must remember that fire and water are not themselves words. Fire and water is an element like in front of us, but there's also an inner fire and water. So we're learning that there's an external fire and water. Alright. And there's an inner fire and water. But remember, we're talking about Zen here. Yin and Yang, fire and water. Yin and Yang is the inner fire and water, and fire and water. Where can I find a man who has no mouth, no eyes, no ears, who nevertheless speaks the truth, sees the truth, and hears the truth? We see the yin and yang. We hear the yin and yang. How do we speak yin and yang? To not speak at all. Which is a spirit of Zen. To just observe. We're speaking harmony. We observe. We see the fire and water outside. To observe. We see the fire and water within. One day, a monk by the name of Zhu Feng went into the meditation hall and started a fire. Then, locking both front and back door, he began to yell, fire, fire, fire. In this case, there's a meditation hall that's physical outside. And there's a meditation hall. Front door, back door. What is the inner fire? Anger, pain and suffering. Negativity, the inner fire. The meditation hall, the front door and the back door. Then locking both front and back door, he began to yell, fire, fire, fire. So when we think negative all the time, we feel fire, fire, fire. Can't you change the inner fire? Absolutely. That's the teaching. But if we don't observe the inner fire, we don't know there's an inner fire happening. You suffer, but sometimes you don't realize it because we're not willing to observe the inner fire. We run away, we drink alcohol, we smoke, or whatever we do. Okay. At this, the rest of the monks began to fear for their lives and cried, let us out, let us out. The rest of the monks' thoughts, doubt, fears, worries start to run. From fear, from anger, your mind becomes busy like the monks. Right? regrets, worry. Let us out. I can't figure. My day is so difficult. I'm having a stressful day. I can't deal with this anymore. A monk named Susha, who happened to be passing by and heard the shouts of the monk in the burning hall, picked up a piece of firewood and tossed it through the window, where Su Feng opened the door. The piece of firewood tossed through the window is like, what does the piece of firewood tossed through the window? Your ears. Zhu Feng opened the door. At this, the master nodded to his students. Who mostly sat and looked at him with dull eyes and empty heads. He thought to himself, one day they will understand, one day when they are on fire themselves. The fire can be burning in the hall, but your mind doesn't have to burn with the fires of, right? Your conscious, we can observe the fires without getting burned. But people see the fire and they burn with the fire. When negative things in life happen, you don't have to burn with negative things. And because when you realize you can just observe the fire without getting burned, the door opens. Negative things in life will happen, brothers and sisters, but you don't have to spiral down the negative drain. You can observe it without spiraling down. This is why Zen, the art of awareness, just being present. You don't have to burn with the fires of your life. The challenges of your life happens, and you can stay in stoic. You can be stoic and not get burned. He thought himself, one day they will understand. One day they are on fire. Because one day when they leave the temple, people will show up to their live stream and criticize them and judge them for helping people on TikTok and online. People will criticize the way we do things. But we don't have to spiral down the negativity that the world happens. Negative things will happen. The truth may be negative, but the truth is still the truth. Sometimes we don't like the negative truth, but it's still the damn truth. So many people, instead of facing the fire, they run away from the fire that's trying to teach them the truth. And so when I come on here and people come blurt out Jesus, or you're doing the wrong thing, he's a charlatan, blah blah blah, the fire. But we don't have to pay attention to that, because we can observe the negativity come and go. Because the fire doesn't have to burn you, brothers and sisters. Negativity is here to teach you, but it doesn't have to kick you in the butt, as long as you learn from it. My brother hurt his shoulder and got mad at me. Neutral, not positive or negative. Negativity is like fire. Positivity is like water. We learn a lot from negativity and positivity. Right? And some people who are Christian come to this stream with water, and some brothers and sisters come to this stream who are Christian come in here with fire. But we cannot expect water and fire from others but we can observe the water and fires in our own consciousness and outside. It's not about the religion. It's about how people practice. It's about you, the way you practice. The spirit of Zen makes sense. That's why I love this stuff, because like, oh, dope. That actually makes sense. I don't have to believe. You see how like everything that I'm sharing with you, it makes sense. I didn't want to just believe in something that doesn't make sense. Yeah. All attention is neutral until we give it meaning, which is the art of observation. This is why many people will come to do a philosophy battle. I'm not looking for a fight. I'm not looking for a debate. This moment is enough. How refreshing. And so we respect people. Thank you, Haley. Thank you, love and compassion. And you see why, like, having an amazing foundation in learning how to observe fire and water, negativity and positivity, that the negativity can happen, but it doesn't have to burn you. Maybe today you lost your job. Your body, your mind may worry, but it doesn't have to destroy you and give you stress. Your mind is worried. You don't have to. You can make a plan and believe in yourself and keep developing. How can I improve? Why did I get fired? Okay, thank you, Kitty. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for practicing with us, Kitty. This is why, like, when it's practical, it's useful, right? We're not just talking about some belief, fire and water, yin and yang. It's not like some symbol that we worship. It's more like something that you can practice. Negativity and positivity, two emotions we have. Right? Because some days your life will be more fire, but it doesn't have to burn you. And on some days, when our life is more water, we don't complain as much. Because why? That day is an easier day because water is pleasant, it's positive. But when the day is negative, we can't be attached to every day being water or fire, but we can be an observer. Some days will be more fire, and some days will be more water. Some days you're gonna be depressed. Some days you're gonna be deeply disappointed. Some days they gonna piss you off. But the only thing getting pissed off is your mind, your body. But when you observe that, when you just be with the observer state, they call that the Buddha nature, the Christ consciousness. But of course, it's really difficult to be with that presence all the time, because the ego, when it's not disciplined, then you're not hanging out with God. You're not hanging out with the Buddha. You're not hanging out with Jesus. But when you are present, you respond to negativity with water, right? Because if your life has more fire, you need more water. And when you have a lot of water, a lot of positive energy, then you go on TikTok and help people. Because the world has a lot of fires to put out. And if you have a lot of water to share, do your part, brothers and sisters.